Okay,
What the fuck is this playoff picture?
Well,
I see.
Okay,
my
what
name
the
is Faith.
what the fuck
I'm
is
a
this
little
playoff picture? Seahawks. The Seahawks are the 3rd seed.
What the fuck?
I'm just a little
Okay. Let me look at. Let me just look at the fucking.
All I wanna do is
The Raiders went. Raiders
I'm
went
just-
3-14. LOL.
Yeah, good.
Guess what? We'll probably have the 1st overall pick if we weren't doing a
Enchanted,
traditional rebuild.
It's a little bit dumb.
How did the
Okay.
Bears
I've
do?
been
What the hell is this fucking software doing? Hold up.
So Kyle, let's go. We should get like a 94.
Just relax, I'm getting shit ready.
Well, I want my money back. Nick, why did you scam me?
Yeah, Nick.
Blaming me for the fact. You blaming me? You trying to blame me here? You trying to blame me? Oh yeah, you trying to blame me?
I don't know, I saw a lot of hugging and not a lot of hitting. Anywho, welcome to the Untitled Sickos Project, where... Why are we starting late? Well, Mike Tyson and Mr. Jake Paul had a fight, and we were the dumb, unsuspecting idiots who thought, we're going to enjoy watching this. Turns out we didn't. Anywho, I am Bears fan, and I regret to say I was excited for this matchup.
Hello, I am Nickman. I am proud to say I was not excited for this matchup. Instead, I was just here to see. I literally just watched this just to say, well, you know what? I might as well set up my stuff for the podcast later. Why not watch with friends? And it's like, you know, this is like it was great. It was actually great. You know, getting to watch Netflix crash repeatedly, knowing that they're going to be hosting not one but 2 NFL games later this season. That was wonderful to watch. Like, truly, I mean, seriously, it really says something that Netflix would keep crashing repeatedly, and the few frames where it wouldn't be crashing was when Mike Tyson's ass was seen for the whole world to see.
That's funny.
But man, was it a great match.
But yeah, I'm glad I instead of watching the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight, I just played Minecraft.
I'd argue that's worse.
How is that worse?
You know what? Here's the thing. You know, a lot of times that would be considered worse, but listen, we found one of the few times where playing Minecraft is not considered worse.
I don't how that blows my mind. How the fuck is that considered worse? Man, Minecraft's such a relaxing game. I know, Tristan. I know. You're absolutely right. I ran into this one. You're absolutely right. Anyway,
A lot of things.
yeah.
One more.
No, it's the run still lives. The run still lives. That's the best part about it. We're doing a hardcore run where if we die, it's game over, and we haven't died yet. On attempt 4. So I'm really happy that that's going pretty good. So I haven't died in Minecraft yet.
You're having a more successful night than Netflix, so pat yourself on the back.
I have. Hey, look, I am stream. This stream is more fucking successful than fucking Netflix, man.
You see, this is why. See, we at the Untitled Sickos Project, we do not associate with Netflix. We do not need to associate at all with them, with Netflix. Okay, we need no association with them because our streams, they run good, and Netflix, they can only wish to be us.
Yeah, has Netflix tried using a direct internet cable? I'm pretty sure they get good results from using a direct internet cable. You know?
I don't think so. I think that's just the woke media trying to get one up on you, Luke.
Dude,
I don't use an Ethernet cable or whatever this.
That's because you game on console. I game on PC.
Yeah.
Yes, I need the low ping. But yeah, Netflix. Oh, good lord. Am I ever glad I didn't watch that trek of a fight.
Also, we forgot to introduce 2 other people to the podcast. Oh, one of them has been remaining patiently silent, and I can only hope that they are holding their hands together, waiting for the bit to talk.
Let's survive our horrors coming out of the Netflix asylum.
Noah, this is your cue to
Okay, I
chime
was
in.
thinking you were talking Luke. Yeah, I didn't even bother watching the fight. I just watched the Sixers lose another game. Wasn't fun, but probably was better worth my time. Sup, it's Amper, or Noah.
Speaking of which, Amper, would you like to enlighten the audience what you are doing right now?
Yeah. I'm currently working on a Danganronpa highlights video of a recent stream the Sickos did on Chapter 2. I am a Danganronpa veteran. I've done this for 7 years now, and it hasn't gotten any less fun since I started.
True. And as Nickman will say, this is a game where he is quite baffled. He would even be good even.
Yeah. The ride never ends.
Well, you know what? It sounds like you're having a blast playing Danganronpa. That's good.
Surely there is nobody standing behind me right now as I say this. I am 100% pure emotion right here, okay? I am having a great time with this. And personally, just ignore whoever is standing behind me right now. They do not dictate my opinion at all. I am 100% having a great time, and as I already said, the ride never ends.
Thank you, Spencer. You can go to bed now. We've got his opinion. We got the correct opinion from his experience. He flipped us off. Okay, all right. Thanks, Spencer. But yeah.
I will only say this just because we got other stuff we should probably get to talking about. We will be streaming Chapter 3 tomorrow for those who are interested. It'll be with be me, Nick, and of course the Gaggle Gallery, which is their name going forward. So if you really enjoy the GG, let us know because me and Nick hang out with them constantly. And the only reason why Nick hangs out with them is because I've basically kidnapped him to hang out with them.
I don't know. What time are you guys doing it at?
7:30.
7:30. Oh, so 5:30. Yeah. You fellers have fun. I was thinking about I might pop in, but I hardcore Minecraft calls.
Oh, we're trying to keep it to just the group, mostly because it makes it a lot easier, and so that way people just know this is us. Plus, that way Noah doesn't have to recognize a sixth voice. He already has to recognize 5 of them.
Oh, I'm sure he'll do great, but no, I probably won't be around.
Oh no, I have a lot of faith in Noah. But I just want to let Noah know.
If you say you don't want me around, you just fucking say it!
We love having you around, Luke. It's not that. I was just gonna say to quote
yeah,
a famous,
man. He see this. Come on. What's with the mask? What's with the mask? What's with the mask? What's with the mask?
I just want to.
Luke, they've kidnapped me already. They're coming for you next.
It's okay. I can always just say no. Because if I were to do some gooner bait, you
This is not a gooner bait. Come, stop.
Nick, is it gooner bait? Is it? I need you to be honest, because it sounds like it's gooner bait.
Yes.
So.
It is not.
So. I get that you're a Danganronpa fan. I mean, that's great and all. But you know, if you were to do some anime games with me, you gotta have to do a lot better than just kidnap Nick where we know he is from the editing basement. You're gonna have to, you know.
Two things. One, to quote a famous superhero from from like a third sequel. Amper, you'll be doing this until you're 90. Second, I'm pretty sure Noah can testify to this by saying Danganronpa is not Gooner Pates. It is nowhere close to it. Does it have moments? Yes, but it's not anything less tame than the VTubers you watch.
I mean, keep in mind, all I watch is Hololives, so... Doki Mitt and Chibi, so I don't watch anybody outside. Oh, and Scarlet! I watch Scarlet because she plays sports games, and I like sports games. But yeah, no, I probably...
I hope you're having a good time with the chat. I hope you're having a good time.
Yeah, I'm having a great time reading the chat.
I haven't checked the chat yet.
Come on, Taegan, this is where you get a device that nobody is using, and you interact with the chat. Come on! She did, yes, she did do. She did a face reveal back in August. So, yeah, she did an IRL video of her playing baseball. But I like the fact that we have a VTuber that's in the baseball community. I think that's great. Because I saw her a lot on before then on Reels, and I was like, oh my god, there's a girl that's playing sports games. No freaking way! And I was like, that's awesome. Give me a second.
Regardless, I need Noah to defend our game right now. It is more than it is not Gooner bait. Isn't that right, Noah?
Oh, it's not Gooner bait, but it is pain and suffering. Just a word of warning: if you try to get emotionally attached to a character, chances are they're dying.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Nick hasn't. Unfortunately, Nick has not learned that quite yet, but we're gonna make him learn. He'll be attached to a character soon enough.
Eventually.
Luke, did you turn us up?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, thank you.
But yes, there's many to talk about today. However, I feel like there's something that that should be talked about right now, because as the stream says, I have a bit of a hot take. You know, I hear the sigh in the background, and I can tell.
I don't even have alcohol to ingest, man. I don't even drink.
Look, it's better just to rip the Band-Aid off now, you know? So I'm going to say something that's a little bit controversial.
Going to piss Luke off.
I want to preface this. The person I am talking about has been good. He has been a overall positive impact on his team, and he has moved them into the correct direction where they should be going.
But get this!
However, this needs to be said. I think the entire NFL is just overrating Jaden Daniels.
Shut the actual fuck up, please.
Boo!
Taegan, you contradicted yourself, because if you're telling me that Jaden Daniels is overrated, Caleb Williams is a bust. Flat out, Caleb Williams is a bust. I don't want to hear it. You're telling me that Jaden Daniels is overrated, Caleb Williams is a bust.
Hey, let's not yell here. Let's not yell.
No, because I knew this was coming, and it's no. You literally have said the Washington Commanders are in a truly a different trajectory. He's overrated as fuck. I'm sorry. Overrated does not turn around the Washington Commanders into the team that they are. He is perfectly where he needs to be. And can we stop with this overrated nonsense when players are rookies? Because if you're going to be saying that, I'm going to be saying that every single stream. Caleb Williams is a bust. He is a bust until proven otherwise. If you're telling me that Jaden Daniels is overrated.
I'm just saying.
Caleb Williams is a bust. What has he done at the NFL level? He hasn't done anything.
Luke, I have to also speak as well. I am not saying that Jane Daniels has been. I'm not saying Jane Daniels has been bad.
By saying he's overrated, that's exactly what you're saying.
No,
That's exactly,
overrated
Nick,
does
you
not.
agree with me.
No, overrated does not equal bad.
Yes.
There's a weird.
Yes. Taegan, overrated is, you're telling me that he is completely overrated with everything that he has done. Turning around the Commanders,
No,
overrated. What is Caleb? This is coping. You are
not
coping as a
saying-
Bears fan. You are coping
I
as a
am
Bears fan.
Luke, you have to let me speak. There is no correlation to being overrated and being bad. You want to know something? You can be one of the greatest at your position and still be considered overrated. Overrated is not a bad thing. It is just something to be like, hey,
It is something
I
that
think
people
this
need to say
person
to make themselves feel better about their quarterbacks. By saying Jaden
know
Daniels
what?
is overrated, you're telling me that Caleb Williams is any good? I'm just using your logic,
No.
man.
You know
No,
what?
Caleb
Hold
Williams
on,
has
let me
not been
step
that
in.
good.
Let me step in because I agree with what Freeman's saying in the comments. You know, overrated doesn't mean bad, and I agree. I agree with that. I also agree that Taegan's wrong here.
100%.
I
100%. We need David Miller here. We need David Miller here. Because
I mean, we might be getting him for Thanksgiving.
That's awesome. That's
Fingers
good.
crossed. Here's the thing. I'm not gonna sit here and say that he's been bad, because he's been a good player for the Commanders. He has helped turn this team into a different direction. That being said, I've been seeing a lot of media attention on him when I feel like
No.
it could be useful to other players as well.
What,
I get
Caleb
being a
Williams?
No,
You're-
no, it's
Bo
not,
Nix?
No.
Hear him out. Hear him out. Hear him out.
I'm just saying this like that. Like Malik Neighbors has been a complete and utter beast when he's on the football field, but yet I hear almost no one talk about him. I feel like it's only talking about Jaden Daniels. I feel it's the same thing with Bo Nix, where Bo Nix, he almost beat the Chiefs and had one of the strongest games that a quarterback has had this year against them. And yet, no one's talking about that because the Chiefs have some bullshit devil magic and they pull wins out of their ass like no other. I'm not sitting here and saying that. I'm not sitting here and saying that Jaden Daniels is overrated in the sense that his play is overrated. He's overrated in the sense of he is being completely and utterly oversaturated by the media. And I can sit here and I can also look at myself and be like, you know what? Maybe I am still a little bit bitter from the Hail Mary. However, I don't think I'm bitter enough to let this seep deep into me. Now, I do agree. I do agree with your point that Jaden Daniels is turning this franchise around and is putting it in a correct direction where they should be going. I agree with that. I just don't think that, at least right now, that he should be getting like all this super hype. He's been good, but we need to pay attention to other rookies and what they're doing. Like, Jared Verse has been an absolute monster on the Rams this season. Who's talking about him? You want to know something else? Quinyon Mitchell has been holding DBs to under 30 yards as a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
But yet no one's talking about him.
I've been
It's all about Jaden Daniels.
I've been seeing more people talk about Quinyon Mitchell as of late, though. And that's to the fault. The NFL media, I will never take the NFL media seriously. Like,
Right.
I have just stopped paying attention to the NFL media. Because why it is flat out, they love Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, and any new toy syndrome that comes their way. They will not talk about anybody else outside the quarterback position, and you have to be one hell of a superstar at wide receiver, right? Like, I've stopped listening to the media because it's the same thing over and over again, because it is, again, a lot of these people have people writing stuff for them, and the people who they hire don't watch are not hardcore fans like you or I, right? I think the NFL you could argue that the media, you have an argument that the media will always talk about the shiny new toy syndrome like no tomorrow. Why do you think Taylor Swift, when she was around, that's all the NFL media could talk about? This year, I don't hear it as much. Because it's old news. It's old news. The NFL loves that hip, new, sexy toy that they like. I think what the NFL should be doing is they should be trying to talk about as many teams as possible. Because even for, right, like, you know, in the Canadian markets, like, we're going to go to hockey, for example, right? Like, every Canadian team, they're going to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs the most because it is the biggest team in Canada, and they will always talk about the Maple Leafs. But when they talk about other teams outside the Maple Leafs, I feel like they get their fair shake. The NFL hasn't learned this, and if we are still paying attention and relying on the NFL media to get our source of information about the NFL from the NFL media itself, you got to find other media outsources, because the NFL, they're going to talk about the new hip, sexy toy around. That's why it's going to drum up controversy. It isn't that, like, Jaden Daniels, they're going to hype up Jaden Daniels, he's going to have a bad game, and they're going to still say, oh, look at these numbers, when there's a bunch of other players in the NFL that absolutely deserve the attention that they need, but the NFL is not giving it to them. Why do you think we like shows like Brandon Perna? Like, why do we think we watch Brandon Perna, Urinating Tree, The Dumpster Fire? We watch Clickbait Sports. That's where we get that's where we get our sources, because they are neutral sources. Not the NFL, because the NFL is going to be talking about the new toy syndrome like there's no tomorrow. And if we're going based off of, hey, Jaden Daniels is overrated because I'm sick and tired of hearing about his name all the frickin' time, then I believe you need to change your media sources.
I mean, like, this is a response to both of your points, like, both of your points and all of that. The thing is, like, you know, the thing with Jaden Daniels and the media is, like, I understand it, because it's, like, you know, it's a Washington franchise that, you know, really has been spinning its wheels for the longest time. Everyone knows how bad Dan Snyder was. That needs no introduction. You know, you talk about how quarterback-wise it's been for the longest time a carousel, with the exception of RG3 in 2012 and Kirk Cousins for a couple of years. It's been a constant roulette wheel of who's going to be, you know, Washington's next quarterback and all of that. And it's just, you know, the fact that they finally got someone, you know, a top 3 pick, someone as talented, as exciting to watch when he's playing very well as Jaden Daniels. It's going to get a lot of attention, and, you know, given how stuff like, you know, the Hail Mary, obviously, as much as I hate to remind myself of it, like, you know, the Hail Mary gets a lot of attention. Like, the way Daniels plays, it gets a lot of attention, and the NFL media, they see people talking about it, they see people, you know, foaming at the mouth over how he plays, and it's like, you know what, this is something we can sink our teeth into and try and get every dollar out of this, and that's how you get situations like this. Now, granted, I do agree, someone like Quinyon Mitchell, especially after, you know, the game against Washington he had, and just the games he's had all season, yeah, he absolutely deserves more media attention. Granted, it's a lot harder for defensive players, unless you're an established superstar like, you know, a TJ Watt, a Miles Garrett, or a Max Crosby, it's hard to get that media attention. But I do agree that if, you know, in a just society or in a more appropriate media where you got the likes of like Tree, Grossi, and Berna talking and all of that, like, you know, yeah, they, like, someone like Mitchell gets the attention that he rightfully deserves. And someone like Malik Neighbors, on the other hand, like, you know, someone like Malik Neighbors, granted, he is extremely talented. I think the time will come where he gets the media attention he deserves, especially playing for a team like the Giants. The only problem with that is, unfortunately, he plays for the New York Giants, and his quarterback is Daniel Jones. So that's kind of the issue with Neighbors, even though, yes, I do think he is having a very strong rookie season, and eventually the praise should rightfully come for him. Now, you mentioned how NFL media, and you talk about how, like, yeah, the NFL media in general is very shiny toy, rules all, and basically it's that and all reliable. Like, if there is all reliable for the taking, where the NFL media knows, hey, this is going to draw, we can talk about it. The Chiefs right now, you know, they are always going to be an all reliable. They will always be all reliable as long as Patrick Mahomes is playing for them. And, like, the greatest example of the NFL media, no matter how, like, literally just how irrelevant this team will become, I feel like the NFL media will always have a fixation on the Dallas Cowboys until the sun explodes. That's the way things are going to remain. Granted, this season's gone down because the Cowboys have been a lot less interesting, which thank God for that. But, you know, like, unless you're an established, you know, big market team like, I don't know, like the Eagles, for example, or you've made great runs many years now, even if you haven't been able to fully take advantage of it, like the Bills, it's going to be hard to really, you know, truly catch the media's attention unless you are a very exciting team to watch offensively and defensively, which is why someone like the Detroit Lions have, you know, done as well as they have with the media, especially given this is the Detroit Lions we're talking about, and the fact that a franchise that struggled as much historically as the Lions have are doing as well as they are, it's going to get a lot of headlines. And I think the last thing to note is how, you know, this is not just alone, or like, this is not just an NFL media issue. Like, there's a lot of sports where this is a media issue. And honestly, I feel like the most egregious one, where I'd argue they're more egregious than the NFL, is NBA media. Because honestly, the NBA media is probably the worst of them all. And honestly, I feel like a lot of the influence from the NBA media and just takes in general about basketball has rubbed the wrong way onto the NFL media, and that's why you have the shit you see today.
Yeah. I mean, I think we could just I would blame flat out ESPN. Because they don't like the small market teams. Their hearts literally died when they aired the Phoenix Suns and the Milwaukee Bucks NBA Finals.
Yeah,
Because
they were
then you're
literally
forced
complaining about that on air, like, genuinely. They were literally complaining about having to do that series on air, and it's like, I mean, way to prove everyone's point.
And I mean, imagine if, like, the MLB, you didn't have like, do you know how, like, the NBA was completely salivating at the fact that they were going to cover the two biggest markets in all of baseball, the Yankees and the Dodgers. Do you know how wet every media reporter was? Because you weren't going to, like, freaking Arizona, you weren't going to Washington, you weren't talking about them, you were talking about the Dodgers and the Yankees. Oh my God, we're talking about Ohtani and Judge instead of, you know, bums like Ketel Marte and whoever the hell, or Corey Seager. Oh my God, they were so happy because that's like a big problem with media is, like, there's so many, like, I think hockey tries their best. And even then, they have to try at least, because there's other media outlets that do talk about everybody's best as they can. I think the two known ones that come to mind is the Steve Dangle podcast and the Hockey Guy.
Yeah, and I feel like I will say though, I think a thing to note about hockey, at least here in the States, that honestly, it's that on one hand, it does say that, the NHL technically isn't seen on the level of these other leagues by these big media networks, but at the same time, it's also a good thing because you're not having these big media networks, talk about the NHL the way they would other sports. And honestly, I think the fact that, for as annoying as it might be that ESPN, ESPN, like, for the longest time, until, they got them on their network again, for the longest time would ignore the NHL. At the very least, it did help hockey fans have to avoid the insufferable hot take spews that ESPN and other networks here in the States would like to do with other sports. And that's something worth noting. And also looking in chat, like, in terms of media attention, Brady still doesn't seem that long ago.
Yeah. I also, because to me, like, also with the NHL with ESPN, right? I feel like ESPN doesn't give, like, the main guys, right? They don't care that hockey is.
Oh, 100%.
Like, that's the thing that is upsetting, is that they're the one network where it's like, hey, we have hockey. Okay, so is it popular? Nope. Moving on. Which really hampers the growth of the NHL in American markets, because I feel like, man, if they would watch a Game 7 of a hockey game, you would change. They would become fans of it. Like, Scooter became a hockey fan because of playoff hockey. Like, even Tom Grossi watches the NHL playoffs. Like, it's a special time for the sport. Yeah. But ESPN doesn't talk about that. They're more on, what is the Lakers' next step when they're eliminated? Instead of talking about the team that, the players that eliminated them. I bet you we're going to have more highlights about Bronny James in the G League than, like, highlights of the, let's call it, Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah.
And this all so maybe I should have found a different way to say it, but still, for the most part, I feel like my point stands when I say that, like, I feel like media really just sticks on a player because of one play. And I'm not saying that Jaden Daniels doesn't deserve his flowers. He did great against Cincinnati. He had a good game against Carolina. But let's just pump the brakes a little bit. I'm not asking for, like, a shit. I'm not asking for, like, everything else. I'm just asking for a little bit of just pumping. Just a tiny bit.
Would you be willing to change the hot take into the media has overhyped Jaden Daniels?
Yes. I am more than willing to change it to that.
Because that is better. I would be like, yeah, you're absolutely right, because there's enough evidence that says a miracle play does not define whether or not you're consistently good. Like, yes. He's had a few, like, he's had games where, defenses have figured him out, but, to me those are, like, learning curve games, into where it's going to be, coaching is going to be the main factor of why you win. Right?
Yeah, and I think we're experiencing. Oh, sorry to interrupt.
You actually go. You finish it. You can finish your point.
So, yeah, it's like we're learning that right now. Like with Jaden Daniels, like he's going to face teams like right now that are like, like as we've seen with the Steelers and the Eagles in back-to-back games, where it's like, these teams are like, okay, we've seen them at least have a little bit of struggles against some of these types of defenses. Okay, let's see what we can get out of this. And in terms of like the Steelers and the Eagles, they have found good results in terms of like containing Jaden Daniels, and that has boded well for both of those teams. Both of those teams won their games against Washington and really took Jaden Daniels just completely out of the picture. And I think it's going to be it's going to say a lot about, defenses, like how do they, keep responding to Jaden Daniels, because it's like, okay, he's looked very impressive as a rookie, but there are some teams that are starting to figure him out, and we can see if, hey, can we keep figuring him out, or are we really starting to find something here where it's like, okay, Jaden hasn't made this, jump like this. He's made big jumps, but he hasn't made this biggest jump yet, and we can take advantage of that weakness. And obviously, as you noted, like, it will say a lot about how, not just Jaden, but also the coaching staff of Washington, how, how Cliff Kingsbury will adjust to this, because it seems teams are starting to find stuff about, how to slow down Daniels. And obviously the best way to counter that, if you're Washington, is, hey, let's tinker with this a little bit and we will be smooth sailing again. Because Washington will have great opportunities to do that, because your next two games, like before the bye, are against Dallas and Tennessee at home. So they'll have back-to-back great opportunities to really get that momentum rolling again for Jaden.
Also, Luke, I did want to say something real quick. I'm so glad you opened the image I sent you.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if Nick saw, but apparently I drafted a player so bad that the void itself opened up in Madden 25.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe a sign that, like, EA doesn't want you playing this game.
So,
Well-
if I can talk a little bit now about Daniels, because I've been quiet for the past 15 minutes or so.
Go for it, man.
I feel like this is the first game all season where I'd say Daniels truly kind of stunk it up. He has had other underwhelming games, like games against the Bears, but that was also a result of receivers dropping passes and never getting separation. This is the first game where he just struggled to really get into any groove. I checked his next-gen stats, and of his 32 passes that he threw on Thursday, 26 of them were under 10 yards. Not exactly a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, the Eagles' defense has been pretty good all year, but you know what I mean. We're seeing some of the weak points of his game, and this happens with every rookie. I definitely think that he'll be fine as long as Cliff Kingsbury adjusts. To which I honestly have more concerns about him than not, because Kingsbury has been infamous for not being able to adjust in the second half. Every year as a head coach, his offenses have started out excellently, but then have just gone on to fall apart. And if this happens again, well, Jaden Daniels' development could be stunted, because Jaden Daniels' development could be stunted if this trend happens again, which has happened a ton for Kingsbury for the past decade or so. We saw this with Kyler Murray too. The air raid offense that made Kyler Murray look like a blossoming superstar before everything collapsed and he looked extremely mediocre before the torn ACL.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also one thing that I really wanted to go off what the lone foreman said, and then it was, I do agree, yes, Jaden Daniels does get a lot of praise. There was a very long stretch where the Commanders just didn't punt, and that is good. But the thing that I do want to note, and the important thing is this, your first year, I think it is, if there is talent that is there, and if there's stuff that kind of lines up where you're able to excel at where you are good, you're going to do great. But the $1 million question is, what is year 2 like? Your defensive coordinators, their job the entire offseason is to figure out how are they going to stop you. And people have seemed to figure out how to stop CJ Stroud.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
the $1 million question is, how are you going to look like in year 3 when people have figured you out? That's the $1 million question, right? You've had, like, a great example is Russell Wilson has been able to evolve his game. Defensive coordinators have been trying to figure out, how do we counter this guy? And Russell Wilson has been able to overcome the obstacles that many defensive coordinators have put in front of him. And that is something that needs to be noted. It is Jaden Daniels, I think he's going to have a great rookie year, but all eyes are going to be on year 2, right? All eyes are going to be on year 2. It's That's the big thing in my opinion. Year 2 is going to be where is it going to be it? If it's not it, then oh boy, you're going to be sweating like the Texans are sweating right now. But yeah, I think we got
Catching strays.
I think we've I think we had anything else to add about Master Jaden Daniels.
The only thing I will leave this off with is the only thing I want to leave this off with is if you're going to look at Jaden Daniels, look at him far past the Hail Mary. Because if the first thing that pops up into your head is just the Hail Mary when talking about Jaden Daniels, then I think you've officially lost the plot about him.
Oh, I'm going to say you just don't watch football at all. You should be really mentioning about the stretch of 2 or 3 games where the team never punted. That's what should come to first when you talk about Jaden Daniels. Not, oh my god, the Hail Mary!
Unfortunately, a lot of people are.
Yeah, they're not football. You probably are a very casual football fan. The answer, I want to have them talk more about oh my god, how about that stretch where the Commanders never punted? Did you see all the time we never punted? Oh man, that was crazy. But yeah, that's. I think we have to. Wording is better. I think the NFL media needs to. Less Hail Mary, more of the 2-3 game stretch where the team just didn't punt. More of that. But, NFL media. But let's talk about something that's also incredibly based. Georgia's out of a playoff spot.
Thank the Lord.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it's gonna last, but I will take it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we live on a planet where the great Georgia Bulldogs and the great Alabama Crimson Tide are behind that one weird red team from Bloomington with a first-year head coach.
Oh my!
We are also at its time right now where the Army has a better chance at making the playoffs than Georgia does right now. The Army.
Wait, really?
Yes.
I mean,
Boy, I don't know what's wrong with Carson Beck, but he has been horrible this year.
is he a senior?
12 interceptions in his last 6 games.
Is Carson Beck a senior?
Yeah, he is a senior.
Shit. Well, I can't wait to see him in the UFL.
I mean, I'm just gonna say though,
he'll make
it really
the
says
NFL.
something. It really says something that Carson Beck. How far has his stock fallen? It's like it fell from, him being the top quarterback to okay, he's still in the first round, but he's fallen down a bit. Okay, he's fallen out of the first round. Okay, he's in the second round now. That's not great. And then it's like now it's like wow, he's he might not even be a day 2 pick at this rate. Yikes.
He looks like a 5th round pick to me. Unless there's somebody that's like, I just, the thing is like, we don't see, like, I think we've seen like the day 3 guy become a starter, right? Like we've seen that happen with the Niners, and it's a major investment, and a lot of it is, where does a team that drafts you see the ceiling, right? Like Carson Beck, like he doesn't have any personality issues, so that already there has enough attraction to where I don't think he goes like anywhere past round 5 at this point. But he's got to get he can turn it around, but he's got to get the Bulldogs to the CFP. Because the thing about these top SEC games, and he's had 2 of them already. Wait, they played... No, I don't think I'll consider Florida. Like, he's played Alabama. They've played Texas. You've had the difficulty... They played Clemson where he looked bad, but then they got their stuff together. He looked a lot better in the second half. Right? Like, you gotta... Oh, boy. Beck's got to have a good showing at Tennessee, because I think if Beck doesn't have a good showing at Tennessee, I don't think he gets. I wouldn't think it's too far fetched that they don't. To say that I don't think he gets drafted. He's either 7th round or an undrafted quarterback, which doesn't bode well for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, it really does say a lot though. That just I mean, all credit to Ole Miss, because that's, no question, one of the biggest wins probably in program history, going and beating Georgia the way you did, and just completely, really just beating Georgia at their own game, just all game. They just completely overpowered them, and it's like Georgia just, like, rarely, even when Georgia has lost, like, rarely Georgia looks out of their element, but right at the Ole Miss, they just completely pushed them out of their element.
Mm-hmm. Especially Georgia on
Speaking
the...
of...
No, I'll add this one thing. Especially with Georgia on the road, right? They had... You were on the road at Alabama where you struggled. And then you really feel like you solved those issues versus Texas. But then you revert back to how you played against Alabama. If that makes sense, right? Like...
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just like the Georgia menace might have stopped. Well, it's either that or the SEC is just a bloodbath. Like we all said, it was like we all knew it was going to be at the start of the year. Like nothing has come. Like realistically, in the SEC, nothing has come easy for anybody.
Yep.
So we'll see how it happens, but I'm gonna laugh if Georgia doesn't make it.
Be hilarious. I would love it. But speaking of SEC teams on the road, well, there was an SEC team on the road this past week that did show up and took care of business in more ways than one. Yeah, Alabama skinned LSU alive. And I think that's the nicest way to describe that game.
Nick said belt to the ass.
Me and Nick were watching that game within our server. And if I remember something that Nick said, I think it was something along the lines of, this is probably one of the worst LSU teams that has ever been put out on a football field since like the early 2000s.
I don't know, but I don't think it was the worst. I don't think that's what I said. I mean, LSU, I feel like, granted, they did have that revive. They did have some great seasons with Daniels, but I feel like LSU hasn't been able to get back to that Burrow level yet. Granted, I will say, I do remember saying this, though. I have not seen, like, LSU Stadium that empty and arguably, like, excluding COVID, I haven't seen LSU Stadium that empty in a, like, genuinely ever. Like, that was a very empty LSU Stadium by the time the fourth quarter rolled around. Like, that was just really a perfect picture of the freaking beatdown that Alabama just gave them that game.
Mm-hmm. Like, the thing that I want to note, too, is especially when you do have, I think with any program, like, the draft is... The NFL draft is it's a death sentence because it's not like, like you're not drafting like, for example, like you would go to like, let's go to the CHL, the Canadian Hockey League, or even NCAA hockey, right? It's, when a guy is drafted, he's still with the team. It's the organization decides whether or not you're going to go forward with this player. But in the NFL, once they're drafted, they're gone. Once they declare for the NFL, they're done. And like, look at Washington and Michigan right now. What the seasons that they're having. Like, Michigan might not even go bowling this year. Mm-hmm. Which, who would have thought that, like, Michigan not even being bowl eligible is a sentence that I don't think that I'll ever say. And then, you look at LSU, you lose two of your top players, but what's this? Michigan's trying to pluck your 5-star quarterback. Oh boy, which if LSU can't retain him, oh boy, that's
You
gonna
know what's
be.
funny? You know what's really funny about that? Is that yeah, Michigan was prepared to offer Bryce Underwood, one of the top quarterback prospects in the 2025 class, $10.5 million over 4 years, and Bryce Underwood responded by posting on his Instagram story a graphic that said #1 quarterback likely to decline Michigan's $10.5 million NIL offer.
Wait, really?
He
Damn.
did. He posted that.
He's gonna
That
decline.
is cold. That is absolutely cold.
But yet it makes so much sense though when you think about it, because like Michigan's not pass heavy, so you won't be able to display like your ceiling like for being a quarterback, right? You're not like they don't run like a high powered offense. Like if I think it was Ohio State that came in and did that same deal. You look at that and absolutely Ohio State's been able to get like 5-star wide receivers in a consistent manner. Like look, they've had JSN who's been was absolutely amazing for them. They've had Marvin Harrison Jr., who had a phenomenal season. There's enough evidence that Ohio State can get wide receivers, whereas Michigan, as great as they are defensively, they're trying to sort of just trying to find like a new identity on offense.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas LSU, they do have that identity. I mean, Joe Burrow to the NFL. You have Jaden Daniels to the NFL. Like the plethora of wide receiver talent that's come out of LSU alone is enough for a quarterback prospect to commit to LSU. Because it's, you know, if you can get talented guys at key skill positions, and you're off.
Yeah, and LSU, they know a thing or two about wide receivers. Most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is another game I do want to talk about from this past week of college football. And I'm happy for multiple reasons because #1, I was just waiting for someone to take advantage of this team's high-end talent having to bail them out week in and week out. And #2, I correctly predicted this game. And yes, folks, I'm talking about the fact that Miami got knocked off by Georgia Tech again.
You know, if I had a nickel for every time that Georgia beat a top 10 Miami football team, I'd have like 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's crazy how that happened twice.
All right, I'm gonna be real. I never liked Mario Crystal Bowl teams. I saw him at Oregon, and I just never could take him. I could never take his team seriously. Always good, but never elite. But they always ranked his teams high. Last year is when I really started to treat him as a joke. And even this year, when they were 9-0, I just still couldn't buy into them. They nearly lost to Cal, and only a really controversial ref call. And just California imploding allowed them to save their skin. They nearly lost to Louisville, who was on a major slump. They just don't impress me, man. I don't like their defense, and I think they've been bailed out by Cam Ward all year. Once Cam Ward got neutralized, it was only a matter of time before someone finally beat him.
I still think even then, like, you know Miami, right? Like, they're still going to find out, I think easily, on average, they can put up 35 points on your team. Easily. It's only how can we stop Cam Ward just long enough for our offense to really put pieces together. That's what's been Miami's strength, is that if our defense can just stay, it's like a spotty Wi-Fi connection. If my spotty Wi-Fi connection can just get me to this point, we good.
Yeah, and that's the thing to know.
Yeah, that is the problem. They have an elite offense, but they just don't have the defense I can buy. The 2019 LSU Tigers had that Heisman winner in Joe Burrow, and that is what everyone remembers. But the other thing is that they could also, in fact, defense. How often did a team bust through their defense? not often the team bust through their defense and keep it close to the end. I think only Texas and Bama did. Meanwhile, Miami is constantly under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, what Luke said about how, like, it's basically like, well, listen, it's going to be, like, nobody's been able to stop Cam Ward this season. So it's basically like, okay, can we stop Cam Ward just enough? Because Cam Ward still went out there and did everything that he needed to do to put Miami in a position to try and stay undefeated. Until that final drive, when Georgia Tech got the right amount of pressure on him and were able to get that strip sack fumble to win the game. And, Georgia Tech is a team, they're a good team that I honestly think, I feel like they're a better team than what their record says. And honestly, it's games like this that really show that. Because the fact of the matter is, Georgia Tech just... Their quarterback, Haynes King, was playing with a busted up shoulder to the point where they were having to constantly swap him out with their backup. And Georgia Tech was still able to find offense all day, mainly because their rushing game is just that damn good. And I think the thing that's interesting is Miami's problem all season on defense. Like, their defense isn't good, but their big problem on defense all season has really been the passing defense. Like, the secondary just constantly gets burnt. But this past game, it was not really the secondary that got burnt that much because, well, they weren't passing it that much. As much as it was, the run defense just got absolutely clobbered by Georgia Tech all game. And there was just nothing that Miami could do to just stop that run defense from just keeping on chugging and all of that. And Georgia Tech, I mean, that was a great win for them to become bowl eligible once again. And Miami, obviously, Miami is still in a very strong position to make the college football playoff. But it really feels like, I think teams know, listen, if we just stop Cam Ward just a couple of times and we can expose their defense very well, we can, if our offense is strong enough, we will beat Miami. And I think that is something that is very reasonable for a team to look at who has to face Miami. It's very reasonable. Now, granted, I do think Wake Forest should be a very winnable game, even if Wake Forest should put up a good amount of points. But Syracuse, I think, is going to be a very interesting game for Miami. Even though Syracuse is on a... even though Syracuse has had some games as of late where they've been tripping over themselves, Syracuse will put up... I do think they should put up a lot of points, and that should be a very fun game to watch between them and Miami.
Mm-hmm. Kyle McCord too. That's going to be another. That's going to be, I think, a quarterback to eventually watch. As much he's looked really good at times, like really great at times, but also like just ugh. But I think, like, against Miami, this is where you would see, like, Kyle McCord, like, absolutely have, like, a game of the, like, of legends. Like, it's gonna be, like, it, like, I think we're gonna see, like, could potentially be as close as, like, that epic between Texas A&M and Alabama when Johnny Manziel was the quarterback. Like, that epic of a game that everybody should be tuning into. And my follow-up question for that is, if the Miami does make the CFP without winning the ACC, could you see their first matchup being against Boise State, and what would the final score look like?
Good question.
Well, that's interesting to think about, because in that case, in Miami, in this scenario, if Miami doesn't win the ACC, chances are, because looking at where they are right now, if they don't win the ACC, but they still make the playoff, chances are they would be playing on the road.
Yeah.
And
I think that that's a true statement.
yes, and in that case, you would be going to Boise in December, where it's cold as hell. And I just find that really interesting to think about, because I think not just the fact that you're going to have to stop Ashton Jeanty, the fact that you're going to have to stop him, and honestly, a pretty underrated passing attack that Boise State has, but also Boise State has a solid enough defense for when you have to play at home turf in cold weather against Miami that's not used to playing in cold weather like that. Granted, a lot of college football teams won't be used to this weather, but Miami especially. That's a very interesting scenario to think about.
Yeah, that's because but think of like how good of a litmus test it's going to be for Cam Ward going on the road to Boise State. That is because like a lot of times like playoff football weather is going to be cold, unforgivable, and if in theory you do get that kind of matchup, it is, I mean, to me, I would find it to be extremely unlikely just because I don't know if the CFB committee would ever give a G5 school, especially with the current playoff format, the 8th seed. And I think it would be a lot for Miami to get. It would be hard for Miami to get anything higher than 10. I feel just because you didn't win the conference and they just have they'd rather put like Notre Dame, Alabama over Cam Ward. And even then, another team that's there is Colorado. It's like, I don't want to be the CFP committee when it comes, like, I thought, like, man, 12 teams is going to solve it. I don't even want to be the CFP committee when they're at 12 teams because there's going to be...
I do not envy them.
Oh, I don't envy them. You're going to have to decide, because everybody's going to have an argument to make the CFP. Like, especially if you're in the SEC, right? Like, there are 6 teams that could be potentially finish. There are going to be, I think, 4 or 5 teams that could be finishing just at the general record of 10-2. And the thing is, Georgia's beating Alabama. Alabama's beating Georgia, but Georgia's beating Texas. Like, there's so many layers of teams that have beaten other teams who are you going to put over?
Yeah. But you do mention Colorado, and that's a good point to bring them up because Colorado and the college football playoff is a very real possibility right now. Like, very real.
Like, I would have Colorado and BYU both make it. But, like, the thing is, you got 12 spots, and there's so many... Like, Army loses to Notre Dame, they're not going to make it in. I'm sorry, they're not going to make it in. Yeah, they have to beat Notre Dame. And if Notre Dame doesn't beat Army, Notre Dame's not going to make it. It is, I believe, right. The next game Notre Dame plays is against Army, right? Because I think Notre Dame's got Army and then USC.
Oh, no, they play Virginia this week. Army afterwards.
Oh, okay.
And then USC.
Okay. So, like that game alone is going to determine who makes potentially one of the spots. It is coming down to the wire, thick. It's like thick and thin in the CFP, and I believe next year it's gonna go to 14, which solves another issue. I just say just go to 24. Just go to 24, man. And if you want to go that extra mile, you want to do that, you give the 24-25 number, the rankings, make those 2 teams be the play in the same week the Army and Navy game. If you wanted to be extra clever. But like, a CFP is I can't wait till we're gonna look at the college football playoff as something on the lines of, March Madness. And I hope one day we see that because I love seeing top games versus I love seeing don't get me wrong, I love top tier conference games. They're great to watch. But there's something magical when you see like the best team in the ACC play the best team in like the Big 10 and like Big 12 versus the SEC, right? Like there's something magical about that. And even then, imagine if Boise State makes a giant run at the Natty. And they're a G5 school. Do you know how much respect you're going to have to put on the Mountain West if Boise State can take a run at the Natty? Right? I'm going to be looking at it going like, what the heck? UNLV might, we should be talking how UNLV should be in this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Yeah, that's the hot take.
It's just the thing is with the entire CFB. It's just I think even the G5 schools could beat teams like Oregon, Ohio State. Like genuinely, they're so good that it's just even even the teams that we would consider like, oh, they're not that great. Like I could probably see them beating those teams, and it's like we are living in a world where like Ashton Gene T is going to be out dueling Dylan Gabriel. That's just wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think that, alongside Ohio State, the team that, I mean, you mentioned it, the team that gave Oregon their best fight this season, equally as strong as a fight, to the point where Boise State was on the verge of doing it. It was Boise State that had Oregon on the ropes early.
Not only
And that's
that
crazy to
too,
think about.
not only that too, but people forget that earlier this season, Idaho also almost beat Oregon.
Oregon's been
I
giving
think a lot of
quite a couple scares. I think a lot of I really do hope we get to see maybe like more invitation from the Big Sky to join the Mountain West or the Pac-12. I do hope we see some of that, but I also just say if I'm a G5 conference, I'm pushing for 32. I make that push because because you would have every champion would have a guaranteed bid. Every champion would have a guaranteed bid to be in the CFP. Like that's big on its own. And then you could argue like you already have like half the SEC in the big and like six Big Ten, 6 SEC teams in there. Let's give some love to another G5 program. And I think more people seeing G5 schools do well for again just I consider myself very casual, which would be really helpful for universities getting their name on the map, for people actually watching them. Taegan, was there anything that you wanted to add?
Oh yeah, apparently people like seeing me get angry at Iowa.
That was a good video.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good video. That was funny, and I hope you guys enjoyed the nonsense that I made Nick edit.
Yes, with the Untitled Cold Project. Yes, that was certainly cue Shalat snorting Cheeto dust right here.
Yeah, inside joke. But yeah, college football, I mean, I really wish the Pac-12 was still there because the Pac-12 was just getting better and better and better. But I feel like without the Pac-12, I feel like a lot of my top matchups are just not there anymore. Because we do normally pick 'ems, right? And I think when we did them last year, I think the average college football game, we had like 4 or 5 per week. And we had like 1 week where we had like 7. Where we picked like 7 games in a week. This year, I Navy and Tulane isn't ranked, but I feel like that's like I consider it ranked versus ranked. Like you saw the sauce I was there with. It's just it feels very different without the Pac-12. I miss the Pac-12, man.
Honestly, this might be blasphemy. I don't think the Pac-12 was as good as people thought it was.
No, it was the meme.
Was it great?
Was
it great for meme? Was it great for meme potential? 100%. But realistically, not a lot of teams in the Pac-12 were on the up and up.
You had Oregon, right? Oregon was like, because you know how usually in conferences, right? Like in the Big Ten, you always know Michigan's going to be hard, Ohio State's going to be hard, and there's enough like mid-tier teams in the Big Ten that there's going to garner enough interest, right? But like the Pac-12, I mean, the USC has been dormant for years, and then you have what usually college programs go through. They're going to build through a recruiting class. You got the transfer portal, and then they're going to merge for 1 or 2 years, and then going to go back down. It's like waves. It's like waves, right? But now that you have, like, I understand why the Pac-12 disbanded like the way it did. It disbanded, right? It needed to disband because college football loves these big ranked versus ranked games. And oh, hell yeah, would you love to see Ohio State versus Oregon? Absolutely. And other teams in the Big Ten got the memo that is like, hey, we're adding these schools that, we're adding Oregon that's going to be like a top dog, right? With these top tier schools, our conference is going to gain more prestige, and the NFL and scouts are going to look more at the Big Ten than, say, the ACC or the Big 12 because of what was added. And, like, here's the thing. The SEC is always going to be the SEC, right? The SEC is the best conference in college sports for football. 1,000%. And Ohio State has been able to almost replicate that. They just need Northwestern, Rutgers, and Purdue to get their crap together. And if their crap is together, even if they're just up to just a very consistent mid-tier team, the Big Ten's gonna be a dogfight. Because there's even lots of times where I look at like saying like an Ohio State schedule, and I'm like, this is like the easiest 12-0 schedule on the planet. And I'll look at the SEC for like Texas, and I'm like, well, there's a couple tough games on the docket here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, preseason. I didn't know how good Indiana was going to be, but Indiana and Ohio State next week. Next week or next week?
Next week.
Next week. Oh, grab your popcorn buckets. This is going to be good. I love the way how Indiana has turned their program around. This is what you want to see from college football. Even then, as James Madison, they're doing pretty. It's not as good as I'm pretty sure they would like it to be, but they're doing some pretty notable things too. They're still hold on, are they bowl eligible, or are they still not because of we don't want new Div 1 schools to go bowling despite.
They're 7-2. They should be bowl eligible. Wait, are they?
Because isn't it 2 years? 2 years you're not.
Oh yeah, nope. They are bowl eligible.
Good.
Yep, they are.
Good. Because even that, you're still 7-2. It wouldn't be too far fetched to see James Madison make the jump into the Big 12 or wherever they decide to go, because they are a good football school. Like they've been, ever since they made that jump, they've been consistently great. And that is what I hope to see the Big 12 do, is build themselves up into a super competitive tier stats. There's lots of colleges that want to be like that in the Big 12. And they just got to try and fill in the void that was left by Texas and Oklahoma, especially Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, college football, if you haven't watched it, start watching it. We're getting down to the finale of some excellent games coming up here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, I do want to address one bear-sized elephant in the room, and I'm gonna say this right now. Luke, you were right about Shane Waldron.
I don't like to be right about stuff because I truly want the Bears to be good. I truly do. But
Seconded.
It feels, from what I've seen, from the Chicago Bears, just from what I've seen, they're still defensive-minded, and until the day they go through a genuine culture change, will be for the greater good of the Chicago Bears organization. Like, the McCaskies need to sell the team. Flat out. They won't, but for the greater good, the Bears need to sell the team.
They're not doing that until Virginia dies, and I don't blame Virginia. Let me make it very clear: I have no ill will towards Virginia McCaskey. She is just the one who owns the team. She does not run the team in any way. She just owns it. All my ill will is painted towards George. And the reality is, I feel like it has been said that if Virginia, when she finally passes, George doesn't really want to own the team, and he'll probably look at it. So that's the hopeful scenario, because it just feels like, like ever since George took over like the operations in 2011, it has resulted in just 2 playoff appearances for the Bears, and that's just not going to cut it.
Yeah, it's because I want to see what the Bears can do at their full potential, because they are, believe it or not, they are still one hell of an historic franchise. They are a franchise they're one of the most historic franchises in the NFL. And the sheer fact that for some evil reason they're still stuck in the same toilet bowl drain that they've been in is infuriating to watch, because they see like there were like, think of it like before we all knew Jordan Love was going to be good. I mean, I'm a Bears fan. I'm like, here we go. This is it. It's our turn, right? You know what? What's that one meme from Skip Bayless? What did he say? It's my turn. It's on those lines. Like it was the Bears' turn to finally shine, and Jordan Love's a stud. God fucking damn it! Here we go again. Oh, and the Lions. They finally got their stuff together.
I was going to say, it's not just the Packers. It's not just the quarterback roulette wheel or the quarterback success wheel they have. It's the fact that there is a giant blue tsunami coming right at us, and it has Dan Campbell's face right on it.
Here's the thing, though. Here's something that I will say this. Despite what everyone thinks about Dan Campbell, there's one thing that I will say, and that's not towards him, more towards the Lions organization. I never fear when the Bears play the Lions, because Jared Goff is their quarterback. And that is not an insult towards him, because he's been having a good season so far. It's just, throughout history, Jared Goff has been absolute piss water against the Bears. So, I'm not really worried about the Lions. I'm more worried about Green Bay. And
this is more for me. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I feel like in that perspective, this is more like facing us. Like more, the Lions, when they have faced us, even though they have beaten us many times, it has not been outside of the very late season game in 2022. It has not been blowouts. Like, it's always been very close, whether that be an ugly affair or a very high-scoring affair where it's like, you know what, this has been a very well-played game between both teams. It's been very close, and the fact is, Jared Goff historically has really struggled against the Bears. So, in terms of a perspective of, how do I see the Bears and Lions matchup, it's not as fearful, because it's like, well, we've been able to contain Jared Goff. Granted, the Lions have many other ways to wreak their havoc on teams, but in terms of a Bears matchup, the Lions aren't as scary as the Packers, mainly because, the Bears haven't beaten the Packers since 2018. So,
Just looking forward to Sunday. There's so much bad stuff that I'm predicting, but you want to know the weirdest thing of them all?
What?
I feel we're gonna beat them. I genuinely feel we will beat Green Bay on Sunday.
I mean,
everything just seems so much of a shitstorm. It's like they have to win, right? There's no way. Like they have so much stuff going on that it's just like it feels like Green Bay is just gonna allure themselves into like, oh, the Bears are being the Bears again. They're just gonna absolutely get swamped, walked on. The thing is, I could see this being a blowout in favor of the Bears, and I don't know why.
Blowout? No, no, what a
So you know what you said? I don't know why.
blowout.
That's fair to say. Here's the thing: is a win impossible for the Bears? Absolutely not. Any given Sunday always applies to any game, and the Bears do have the talent to pull off an upset, and also the simple fact that it really seems clear that, hey, you know what, you got one of the coaches that you hated out of there. That will at least inspire. That should at least hopefully inspire a little more confidence, because God knows that lasting image of Shane Waldron laughing on the sideline while Caleb Williams looks like he just wants nothing to do with him at all really will be the thing that I think sums up Shane Waldron's short tenure here in Chicago. But it is worth noting that the Packers, for as crazy as it would sound, for as crazy as Taegan's words might sound, the Packers have historically, and this has continued with Matt LaFleur, they have been very bad coming off the bye. And that's something worth noting, where the Packers, whether it just be for rust or just not having their finest performances, they struggle coming off the bye. And granted, I think the Packers still do have a lot of motivation to win this game because, well, you're playing a team that you've owned, and you don't want to lose this game because the next team you're playing is the 49ers. And granted, yes, the 49ers are not having their best season by any means, but reality is this: you have always had a lot of trouble against the 49ers, and you do not want to go into that game having just lost to a team that you haven't lost to since 2018. So you don't want to do that. I'm sure that's well in the back of the mind of the Packers here. It's just, I do think an upset is possible. It's just more, and this goes with any game, this goes with any game that the Bears are going to play with the Packers. I'll believe it when I see it.
I think especially when we look at the Packers, I think an upset is possible, and I think the Bears have a perfect storm to pull off the upset that I think they've been salivating over. A note that needs to be made: they changed offensive coordinators. So the big thing to note is that the Packers, they don't have 2 weeks to prepare for the OC that they've seen for the entire year. They have a new slate. So that
I mean,
I see an upset. I see an upset. I don't see a blowout.
I will say this at the very least. The difference from every single Bears media person I've seen, Anthony Brown is basically the definition of same suit, new color.
Oh, same suit,
but
different.
That doesn't.
Oh.
Here's the thing, though. That doesn't mean he isn't going to change something. He still has control over the routes, and apparently players really do like him. Apparently, it came out recently that Shane Waldron was more interested in being a buddy to the players rather than an NFL head coach. Let players ran their own routes during practice, kind of.
Well,
buddy.
that's not surprising. I've also heard a lot about how I've heard a lot of complaints about how practices have been handled this season. Which, listen, that's something you never want to hear, from regarding like a team and just a coaching staff in general, where something as simple as practices are not going to plan. And granted, for as much as my expectations are not there for Thomas Brown as an offensive coordinator, because God knows the last offensive coordinator job he had did not go so well, there is something that I will say that's definitely confirmed to be different from him versus Waldron: is Brown is way more direct. he is way more direct than Shane Waldron. And let's be real, given how much Bears players just fucking hated Shane Waldron to the point where it's like, it's clear that Waldron just had no idea how to coach him. Someone being direct honestly feels like an upgrade, and that's going to be something that the Bears players could use, especially given that, like, just looking at the standings, this game is basically season on the line for the Bears. Like, there's no sugarcoating that. This is season on the line right here.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit agreeable, and you want them to respond in a big way since, against the Patriots, that was that was not good.
Yeah. There was no response to be seen at all. And granted, that can also be said about the Cardinals game the week prior.
So I think the thing that I would want to see just out of Chicago this week is it's not drastic action, but I think a response. Like, we've gotten rid of the OC that no one has liked, and I especially think for Eberflus, if this is not the response that, if the Bears have another dud like they put up against the Patriots and the Cardinals, how the hell does Eberflus have a job?
Yeah, especially if players are, and granted, I know the Bears' history. I'm well aware of that. Nobody needs to remind me of their history and coaches and all that. But if another dud happens and you have to hear players commenting after the game again, like how, like, what the fuck are we even doing here? And it's just like, they're being asked questions like, hey, do you think Flus has lost the locker room? And it's like, which is like, something, if they're not saying a direct no, the answer is probably yes. And that's something that the Bears, and Flus in particular, cannot afford. But to go on your point about what I want to see from the Bears, like, I'm still not expecting a win. I want a win. This team badly needs a win. But at the very least, at the bare minimum, this team needs to show some damn fight. Like, show me some damn fight on the offense. Like, this team needs to freaking show that. Because if this is like the third straight week of just the team laying down to die for 60 minutes, then what are we even doing here? Like, what's the point?
I just think that also, like, the psyche for the players is like, how do you, go to practice next week, and you've already had your bye week, right? You've already had a chance to reset your mentals and get ready for the the grind that is the football season. But, like, what do you do? Like, if you're a coach and you can't get your guys to respond, you've made this, it's not stated that coaches, like, their job is not just simply when OTAs start, the bad coaches will do stuff when, hey, we have OTAs, let's start trying things, right? Like, let's start trying things. A good coach, the second the season ends, you know who your opponents are. You have an idea of who they're going to draft, who they're going to sign in free agency, and you are preparing a scheme for all scenarios for your future opponents. That's what a great coach does, right? You spend your entire time in the offseason coming up with game plans, right? You know how bad the Pencil Man and Workout Joe Judge, you know how bad they were? They didn't even come up with passing plays until the fucking training camp. And they were awful. It is important for coaches to be working their asses off year round. It's a year-round job. I think your only time off is that maybe like 2 weeks in July before training camp, because you've already have you've looked at a couple things with OTAs. Things have you're tweaking things. You feel like, okay, I think we're in a good position, and then you might go somewhere nice for like a week or two, or somewhere in like March, or somewhere like March or April, somewhere nice in like Cabo or something, right? Like other than that, is a year-round job. There, guys you're gonna have to adjust and adapt, and a lot of great coaches are gonna look at adjusting and adapting to whatever current NFL has been going on, right? And the day will come where an NFL OC figures out how to beat 2 high safeties. It's gonna come. They're spending already, like, they're losing sleep over the fact that they just can't consistently beat 2 high safeties. But the day will come when they eventually figure out how to beat 2 high safeties. And when that day comes, right, defensive coordinators are going to be spending day and night trying to figure out how to beat offenses. I mean, they already have to do with the NFL balance changes every single year, trying to nerf defenses. So it's coaching's a year-round job, and especially with the Bears, right? You know, if Eberflus is the guy, they have to. It's a must-win for Eberflus. Must win.
Oh, 100%. It's must win for him, and really just to get this, not just to get this team back on track, but to find something here, because it's like they haven't responded to him, ever since, the Hail Mary against Washington, and just the fact of the matter is, it's not just this. It's not just this week against the Packers, because after this, you play the Vikings at home. That's always going to be a tough game, especially how the Vikings have, always played, especially that defense against a rookie quarterback like Caleb, where he's just having a tough time out there. Granted, and a new offense, and hopefully a little bit of a better offensive system, for the love of God. But at the same time, that's always going to be tough, especially a Brian Flores defense. And then afterwards, you play on Thanksgiving against the Detroit Lions, and that's going to be even tougher, because it's like, if you go through that stretch of hell, and I'm just going to say, this is my prediction. If the Bears are 4-8 after Thanksgiving, I think that's it for Flus. I think that's the time where the Bears do something they've never done, and they fire a head coach during the middle of the season. I think that's when it would happen.
Man, I forgot they play the Lions on Thursday. Oh, good Lord.
Honestly, and I've said it, yeah. And sorry, before you continue, the other time where I felt like Flus was going to get fired was when we started off 0-4 in 2023. The fucking hell run that first 4 games were. The freaking losing to the Packers on opening day, like getting blown out by them, losing to the Bucks, your defensive coordinator resigns, you get blown out by the Chiefs in front of a nationwide audience, and then you blow a 21-point lead to Denver, a Broncos team that was coming off giving up 70 points against Miami the week prior. And the only reason Flus didn't get fired after that game was because the Bears were playing on Thursday Night Football that week. That was the only reason I feel like he didn't get fired after that game. And granted, they won that Thursday Night Football game. So Thursday Night Football technically saved his job. But I'm going to be honest, with the way things are going, Thursday Night Football might be what cost him his job this time. But that's just the way I see it.
I mean, if you're a player, I'm not looking for you lose. Like, say you get your soul, they don't respond versus the Packers. Like, how? Like, think as a fan, as a psyche. Like, the only thing I could see that is like, it feels like that the Bears are about to play the most half-hearted game of football that I think anybody's ever gonna see on Thursday night. Just so the game is just done and over with. That's something that I, as a fan, would just absolutely, because you're not going to fire a guy on a short week. It's dumb as it is. He loses the game against Green Bay, like soul crushing loss against Green Bay, and then you have to turn around and play a game on the Lions. It's going to be, I think one of the most half-assed, one of the most poorly executed games of football that I think we're going to be seeing.
Yeah. By the way, let me just note that is after the Vikings game, not after the Packers game. So Thanksgiving is still
Okay,
games away.
okay. Right.
Yeah,
Never mind. The firing is
I get
possible.
what you're
Forget what I said.
Yeah, I completely get what you're saying though. Like, it's the reality is this. It's just like with the way things are going, and given they would have that mini bye after the Thanksgiving game, it's like if they're 4-8, I think that's it for Eberflus.
Yeah.
Like, genuinely.
That would be it for the E-bus. But like you do get the like say you like what would be something where it's like, okay, we'll give him one. What's the scenario where you look at Matt Eberflus and it says, okay, maybe we'll give him just one more week.
In that case, the only case I can see that ever happening is if they lose on back-to-back-to-back Hail Marys. And if that ever happens, then I would just not be here anymore. We'd be looking for a new podcast member because I would just give up on football entirely.
Yeah, and I mean, genuinely, that would... Yeah, I mean, something as miraculous as that would have to be the case, because simply put, I feel like unless you start winning games, you're not winning that locker room back. And the reality is, and I've said this already, and I'm going to keep saying it because it keeps proving me right, losing games is not a coaching killer. Losing a locker room is an instant coaching killer. And the reality is...
once you lose the locker room, you're not getting it back.
Mm-hmm. And the reality is, with the Bears losing games, it's only making it worse with the fact that Flus has lost the locker room. And it feels like Judgment Day is coming. Judgment Day is going to arrive, and it's gonna take who it needs to take with this team, because, yikes, there's a lot of problems that need to get solved really fast for the Bears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Locker rooms are super important to keep, and I mean, if the Bears... It's... I hope for the best for the Bears, but it really feels like without... There's you want to see... I want to see from this week, like, a direction. Like, a positive direction for this football organization. And if there's no positive organization, if they're twiddling their fingers, and we're hearing that, hey, they're not going to, upper management doesn't want to fire Eberflus, then it's my response to be like, what are the Bears really doing,
Yeah. So, what's
The only
point?
way...
What message are you also sending to the players where it's like, and I'll let Taegan speak after, but what message are you sending to them? Because it's like, this isn't working. It's clearly not working. This coach isn't working for us, and you're still not listening to us. What message does that send to the players?
I was just gonna say, I can see Flus being fired tomorrow, but I can also see Flus being a Chicago Bear for the next 5 years. The sole reason is, I think if you're gonna keep Matt Eberflus and you're gonna keep him throughout Caleb Williams' at least contract, then at least going into next year, you'd be able to, Flus's last year, you'd be able to find the guy that wants to be like, yeah, I'll make Caleb Williams work. But that's the only scenario I see where Flus is staying long term.
It's the only scenario, but also I feel like that was a scenario where I would consider beforehand, the stretch of games where it felt like you lost the locker room, and simply put, I feel like that was a lot different from what I imagined that scenario would have to play out, because we have to remember, the reason Eberflus got a third season in Chicago to begin with was because of the locker room. The locker room response at the end of the season, compared that to how compare how the defensive players felt about Flus. And compare that to the offensive players and their thoughts about Getsy at the end of last season. It was a complete contrast, and I mentioned that in the season previews, and that was what saved Fluce's job. The locker room is what saved his job. And the locker room is what's probably going to cost him his job.
The NFL is a cruel, cruel place.
It's cruel and cold, and we all wouldn't have it any other way.
You know what the
Yep.
NFL stands for?
Not for long, fuckers.
Nah,
No.
stands for no fucking luck.
I think what we've seen a lot of teams be able to do is they make their own luck. And one of the things that, again, I feel like until the McCaskies sell the team, the Bears are going to be where they're going to be. One day, it will happen. I pray to God that it does happen. That Chicago will be at the 4 point, and I think it's like, again, I always say this. You have Connor Bedard. You have a Connor McDavid in one of the biggest sports markets in the world. In what world do you not share that and have a bunch of teams rise? Like, if you get the Cubs to rise to a monster status. You have the Bears rising to monster status. If the Bulls can figure out, Chicago will be one of the most entertaining sports markets to watch, which is a huge draw for the city. I don't know why, you would want that. You would why you're not why as organizations you're not trying to push for that.
Yeah. It's just, the reality is this. It's like, there's a lot that needs to happen for some things to work, and obviously teams mentioned are going through processes right now, but there are also teams like the Bears where it feels like, yes, we are going through a process, but also that process is stalling pretty badly right now, and we don't want to see a repeat of that. We don't want to see a repeat of past errors, and the reality is the Bears have the talent to be an exciting football team, be a team that could make the playoffs. But unfortunately, the Bears are tripping over themselves repeatedly once again. And honestly, it's more just at this rate. It's more like, okay, I know what I'm getting from this team this season. Prove me wrong. Like, you want me to regain my faith again this season after these past 3 games that I've seen? Prove me wrong. Because if you prove me wrong, great. I want to be proven wrong. I really fucking want to be proven wrong. But as I said about the Bears versus the Packers, I'll believe it when I see it.
And I think that's a good point to end off of, because I've got nothing to add for the Seahawks. It's just we're just mid.
Yeah, and it was a bye week.
It's a bye
nothing
week.
to add.
We're gonna lose to the Niners. So did I put the Seahawks as my upset pick? Did I?
No, I think Spencer may have done that.
Oh God, I did.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Ah, shit. I did. Fuck. I believe we're getting our O-line back. We're getting our O-line back. Our O-line's back from injury. We're gonna win. We're gonna lose. It's gonna be over. We're gonna get crushed like 1,000,000-0. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I think we can put this up into a nice little bow. To a nice little bow for today. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe. Be sure to check out the Untitled Projects, because there was some tomfoolery that happened in the OHL, in the Ontario Hockey League. So, if you haven't checked that out, please do check out also the Untitled Colts video. I felt stupid one day, and that came out. So, yeah. And anyways, I'm going to follow everyone on their social media platforms, and we will see you tomorrow. They'll be doing
Yep.
Danganronpa.
Danganronpa.
Yep.
They'll be doing that tomorrow. So be sure to give that stream also a check through. And yeah, see you guys next time. Peace and have yourselves a damn good one.